no mai haere mai ki Mangarara, ko Greg aho. And yeah, it's fantastic having you here. Thank you, Zeb, for your vision and passion that has made this all happen. And yeah, it's totally what we're all about at Mangarara, is just bringing people together and I guess, honouring the land, and through food and also with a vision for the future. So yeah, perfect alignment. So thank you, Zeb, and thank you everybody for coming. It's an amazing group of people that we've got here, and yeah, and I actually think this weather is absolutely perfect because we all know that we're living in changing times, and it's just, I guess, how we embrace this change, and knowing that it's coming, and being up for whatever is thrown at us, because there's plenty more coming down the track, whether it be weather or economic or whatever else is coming, together, when we come together and many people put their heads together, that's where we can find the solutions. And so yes, it's a great opportunity, and I just think we just need to find the courage and yeah, and be positive and embrace the challenge. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming. So I'll give a bit of an overview of Mangarara. So Mangarara has been farmed since about the 1850s. Prior to that, this lake behind us, Horseshoe Lake, is known as Kokohinipara in the Maori name, and it was used for eeling, the tuna, and so there's no pa actually at the site here, but local Maori used to travel around the lakes of Central Hawke's Bay here and get the tuna and fish the lake. So that was there, and then the Tiffin family started farming it in the 1850s, and initially the hill in the background is Elms Hill, and so it was part of Elms Hill, and then about early 1900s, 1904, the farm was split between two brothers from Elms Hill, and then Mangarara became a separate block. And at that time, or actually shortly before that, they built a little cottage, which is now the house that Rach and I and the kids live in, just behind us here. And then the homestead was built up on the hill just a year or two later, around about 1906. And my parents sold the homestead off in, it's about 15 years ago now, and shifted to town, and another family shifted up from Wellington and bought 20 acres in the homestead. The farm at the moment is 600 hectares, or about 1,500 acres, and we head off over the hill in the mist in the background there. And we're largely a cattle farm at the moment. We haven't got many sheep left. There's a few reasons for that, but we will get back into sheep because diversity is kind of a catch cry for what we do. It's sort of diversity, but we're lacking a little bit of that in our livestock mix at the moment. If you do look down there, there's a dozen pigs running around on a little island with their little houses back there, and all that water under there is not normally there. That's kind of 100 acres or 40 hectares of peat flats, which is all disappeared under just with this rain, which is about 150 odd mils in the last few days. So how long will that take to? Hopefully it'll be gone. If it stopped raining now, it'd be gone in 3 or 4 days. Yeah, it drains reasonably well. And I guess you can see that the lake is on the front of the property, and we just go to the base of the hill there, see the lodge, and yeah, head out here. So there's a fence line there. The sheep are on the neighbour's place, and our place heads back and kind of shows out because it's got a few trees on it. So been really fortunate back in 2007, late 2007, 2008, realised that we needed more trees, and just with our farm budget at the time didn't have a whole lot of money for trees, and so approached Air New Zealand and said, I've got this idea, we're doing a lot of spending on a Global Plus card and getting lots of air points, and at the same time learning about climate change and realising probably shouldn't be flying quite so much. And so just said, oh, is there an opportunity for people to exchange air points for a tree planting program? And they said no, but we're just about to start the New Zealand Environment Trust and we're looking for a project. And so we're really fortunate, right, time, right place. And it was like 42 days from the time that I just rang up the 0800 Air New Zealand number till we were up with the Rob Fife, the CEO of Air New Zealand, the Prime Minister, announcing the first project of the Air New Zealand Trust. And so it's been an incredible ride. And yeah, I guess the lesson there is be careful what you wish for. Just talk about manifesting and things like that. You just would never have believed that something like that could have happened. We got a budget for 3 years, and over that time planted 85,000 trees, the bulk of which we'll probably go and see was native trees in the gully system that we had available, which is. But then I kind of argued, well, we needed some of that budget to put around the rest of the farm, because the farm is open to the public, and I thought there's no point having this beautiful gully of native trees and the rest of the farm looking like a desert. So we managed to plant a few trees all around the rest of the place, and that's ongoing. And I won't keep you out here because I know it's wet and everything, but you'll see quite a focus over just the last 2 years has been around planting these trees in rows through the pastures, and that's our silver pasture agroforestry projects, and they're planted at a density so we can claim carbon credits for them, but also they're adding biodiversity and nutrient cycling, taking the nutrients from deeper in the soil and dropping the leaves. Most of what we plant at the moment is sort of drought fodder for animals, and of course shade and shelter, and we'll prune the trees up for timber. We came past on the way up here, have just bought a kiln. We want to start making biochars to start creating some of those natural cycles. So I guess pruning's off the tree, what doesn't get eaten by the animals, we can burn and create our own fertility through some biochar. And at the moment, it's ridiculous money in that it will not double our income, but over treble it at current rates of carbon. Last time I looked, it was in the mid-80s or something. No, sorry, back to the carbon from the carbon credits from the trees. Yeah, so, and because we're between here and the coast, just in the last 6 months or so, there's been 4 farms sold, and they're all just disappearing under pine trees. And I think the thing that people are missing at the moment is, a big one is energy. I think most of us are just totally blind to how much energy it takes to run our society and particularly produce our food. And there's some major challenges with that. And then, so just losing more food producing land where we can try and create the balance, again with nature, between nature's needs and biodiversity, as well as continuing to produce food. So we expect that through grazing animals or whatever between the rows of trees, which does include fruit and nut trees as well. So there's many layers of production that we can get off it. We'll get the good environmental outcomes, and benefits for shade and shelter for animal welfare, as well as continuing to produce food. So that's probably enough of a rave for now. Does anyone have any questions?
Other monocrop plantings between here and the coast would be carbon credits as well?
They will be, yeah. And people buying up farms for carbon, and even Potter's here, he's very up to date with all this sort of stuff and got his finger on the pulse a lot more than me probably, but they're paying probably at least twice what a sheep and beef farmer would pay for land. Would that be fair? Yeah. To plant in pine trees, and whether or not they'll ever even be harvested, because I think you can do the sums at the moment and they can just walk away from it. They will have made their money from carbon credits and just leave it to the next generation to worry about.
In a bill, isn't it, where they have to be maintained and pruned?
Only if it's overseas investment office.
Oh.
Only foreigners.
Right.
Yours too good for tree.
They are thinking about that at the moment, but then there's the argument about establishing a pine cover crop and then putting natives underneath. there's the argument about Māori land that's being grown gorse and it's perhaps a potential income stream, so that you're cutting out an income stream for iwi, so you've got a lot of consequences, and it'll also pick up poplars and willows, because they're exotic, they're not native, and it'll pick up any other timber species as well. So another blunt rule that hasn't totally been thought through. If you can make it sufficient, it's open at the moment.
Yeah, well, blunt.
Cool. Anyone else?
About just the establishment, you know, there's trees everywhere, some of them out in the middle. Like, how do you establish trees whilst grazing?
Yeah. There was more trees in the pasture originally, because I don't like straight lines. Nature doesn't do straight lines. But it's the easiest, cheapest way for us to be able to grow trees while still generating an income from livestock. And so that's why they are straight. They're facing north-south, so the sun will come through, and we have chosen all deciduous trees so that the sun gets through onto the pastures through the winter time. We did, plant scattering trees around. That was back in 2009 or so with Air New Zealand. Some survived, and we had, still over half of them survived, but we had to keep cattle out for a long time. We had a lot more sheep on at that stage. Whereas now, with our grazing management, we might talk about sort of the adaptive planned grazing, perhaps at another stop. But yeah, so we lost. It didn't really work out that well. I mean, they're there and it's cool. I mean, the other thing we could be doing is like planting on contour, following contour, which there's some good reasons to do that. But at this stage, we've largely been planting on the flatter places, and that just makes sense to plant north-south. And just a single hot wire farming with cattle, it's a really cheap, easy way to establish trees. Like it's costing about $1,000 per hectare roughly, and I actually expect we'll probably get improved performance because we put a water pipe sort of running at right angles, say down the middle of the line, so you've got water and you've got really good control of your animals, and you can shift them. And some paddocks that the back of the paddock wasn't getting grazed very well because it was far from the water point. Now, because we've got water, we can get the animals there, and you get that much more even grazing and better performance and production. So, yeah.
Any intention of planting natives in the agroforestry mix? Or
Yeah.
Is it all, or some natives and then some with a commercial value, then
Yeah.
fruit trees or timber?
Yeah. So the big ones that we did last year were, at this stage, it's been mainly poplar and a few oaks, but in between them, so they're planted at the density to qualify for the carbon credits, but in between them, we've got, I think we were doing like 6 metres between them, so there's 3 metres in the middle. We've got options, and out there we planted a whole lot of hazelnuts, and actually a whole lot of diversity of all sorts. And then there's another paddock we planted flax and karamu, because we just observed that cattle love the flax, but also the karamu is really popular. Stock just go for that as well. So they're the natives that we've put in between the deciduous trees. Yeah.
How would you imagine grazing the poplars? You said they're sort of summer dry feed. In 5 years' time, what might that look like?
Well, I think at the moment, just while they're getting up to a couple of metres or 3 metres of stall, if I get organised and make the time, just sort of prune as we go, and like chuck it to the animals, just on the move. And I just noticed the other day, like we put them into what looked like amazing pasture with clover and everything like that, and chucked a few branches of poplar, and they just went straight for the poplar. And it's just, so I figured it's just cow candy, and they just love it. So we'll just prune as we go, just keep going up with the stock, and we'll end up with a nice pruned log at the end of it, which, and then we can, I guess if whatever tree was growing in between it, you could replace that with another, so that you are maintaining your growing trees all the time. So.
Are you targeting copsing species?
No.
Once you take that out, that'll resprout?
Not particularly at this stage. This year we're doing another 15 hectares, and I've got one side with a lot of ash and liquid amber and willows, And then on the other side we are doing maples is kind of the main one, but again with some diversity in amongst it. So, alrighty, we'll we'll go for a drive out to the middle of the farm, and so we'll be driving past a bit more of that silver pasture stuff. We've got a mob of dairy heifers. Unfortunately you can't see much, and I was planning on having a mob of our like yearling Angus heifers grazing between them, but it's so wet at the moment and it takes quite intensive management. Like the dairy heifers I've already shifted 3 times today, and they'll get shifted at least another time this evening, and that's just so we're not trying to avoid making mud and just keep them moving. So yeah. Alrighty, back to the vehicles. It's going to be slippery for whoever comes last. Well, I'm not going to keep you, we won't be standing around here long, but just wanted to bring you out here because this is part of the planting that we did with the Air New Zealand Environment Trust. Just over the back here there's 12.5 hectares or 30 acres of old indigenous native forest full of beautiful kakatea, matai, totara. So come out again on a nice sunny day and do a little walk around through the bush there. There's a little hut out there. So that's really cool, and that was the inspiration. Just it's hard to comprehend down there. It is so different to, it's a couple of 100 metres away, and it's a completely different environment to the Hawke's Bay that we know today, denuded of native trees. And so it's all about trying to restore that balance. And with the help from Air New Zealand Environment Trust, we planted 20 hectares. So there's a block over there, and then this one. And the plan was to go to the top of the hill, but the 2008 financial crisis came along, and the money didn't get donated to the Environment Trust like they were hoping. So it was a change. So we got our promised 3-year budget, and then they said, that's it, no more. So we're planning and scheming how we can plant the rest of the farm. It's about a bit over a third of the farm is this sort of hill country up here, and we've identified at least 40 hectares of that steeper, north-facing, erodible type country, and looking at options of planting trees up there. So that's probably it. The grazing stuff here is we've had the most incredible spring, summer, and now autumn ever. And we've got so much grass that we haven't had stock on that since probably the end of October, early November. It usually works really well. We call it deferred grazing. And then by this time, for the last 2 years, we've had a pretty big sort of drought on our hands and start pushing up stock around there and feed them. But we haven't quite got there yet, but we'll be there soon. And we're buying some more stock at the moment. There's about 900 cattle on the farm. We've got 90 Angus cows that we went past, and we just bought some 60 weaner heifers that we've just put in with that mob at the moment. We've got just under 200 yearling Angus, which are over the back, just under 200 2-year-old Angus, so it all adds up, mainly a beef farm, and we just, in the spring, we're a bit light on stock, so we got 100 dairy heifer grazers, which we drove past. So we can do the chatting back at the lodge, finish it all off and wrap it up there.